Welcome back. Now, South Africa is a cultural melting pot, and so many of us are part of diverse workplaces, but some professionals are unable to understand workplace culture. But don't worry. As with many challenges in life, there is a book for that. Kedibone Mooi joins us, of course, to discuss her book, The Professional Chameleon, and I'm so excited to actually delve into why this book was so significant to her. Thank you so much for your time. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Excuse me. I have to admit, when I read the book, I related. And I also related from your own personal experiences, because that's what you share about the professional chameleon. But I want to start with that. I mean, the thinking behind the book, The Professional Chameleon, why also share in your personal experience? Why was it important to document, some of the themes you touch on in the book?
Thank you so much. Great question. I write about things that matter to me and the society. I'm big on legacy. I'm big on consciousness, like social consciousness. And in that, there's business consciousness. I'm an executive and business coach. And therefore, I spend a lot of my time talking to people about leadership and how they feel. Because at the end of the day, we people first, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's absolutely.
We're not our KPIs. So even when I coach people, I say I don't coach KPIs, I coach people. So if there is any consistent story that's cross-cutting, that is of concern to me, that I believe society needs to begin to talk about, I write about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So how would you describe a professional chameleon?
I talk about the professional chameleon, Timelo, because I encounter people who are struggling, as you said, to get into the mode of the workplace and understand the culture of the workplace. The world that we are raised in and the world of work, and I mean culture, language, nuances, all sorts of things, are completely different. You're showing up in expectations and everything, the way you are when you are at home and the way you are supposed to show up when you are in the workplace may even clash, in some cases, with the values that you were taught. They clash with your wiring, they clash with your beliefs, they clash with your understanding of how the world works. And I'm saying, if so many people are struggling with this, and let me tell you, the chameleon has no race, has no gender, or sexuality, in my experience. I have experienced people of different racial groups. I don't only coach in South Africa, I coach in Europe, I coach in the rest of the continent. And Happy Africa Day, by the way. Yes.
Yes, please.
And so I do realize that this whole adaptation an expectation of showing up skills that people cannot really identify with is cross borders. I just came back from the US. I spent about three weeks there. I launched this book there. And people who were at the launch, some of them were, yes, living in the US, but they were from Trinidad and Tobago, some were from Cameroon, some were born and raised in the US. But all of them were saying, this is the conversation
that we need to be having. And I also want to ask, in terms of the cultural seed that you talk about, adapting in the workplace and the environment, with that upbringing and those dynamics, how does that contribute to the imposter syndrome that we often find ourselves in a space where you have this imposter syndrome and you almost are robbed of opportunities, or you rob yourself of opportunities because of this imposter syndrome?
And I like the way you pose in your question, because you're saying sometimes you rob yourself of the opportunity to be. But I want to talk about the imposter syndrome. The imposter syndrome, it does happen because we don't believe that we're good enough. Either what I call external noises. You've heard a lot of external noises, maybe from your parents, maybe from your upbringing, that you're not good enough. Maybe you are from an upbringing where you were not told that you're good enough, right? You're not encouraged. And then life happens. There's friends, there's just people who will disable you, pull you to a space where if you are not on a personal mastery journey, you allow them. if your confidence is not where it should be, you allow them. And therefore, you end up with that belief that you are not good enough. And in fact, I've seen it in the workplace where people are saying, I mean, I've seen people with the most beautiful CVs, and I think, my goodness, if I personally had the CV, I don't know what I'd do with it, right? And they still say, it can't be me.
Yeah. How do you then advise us to learn and unlearn? Because I think that's also another dynamic where we, at this age, you're in your 40s, you're in your 30s, but there are certain things that you need to relearn and unlearn, which can be almost challenging, especially if you're that far ahead in your life.
Yeah. You know, I do a lot of work all over the continent, and what I'm known for in many areas, two things. One, yes, is coaching and talking to leaders across the world. And two, is really to talk about personal mastery. You have to begin to understand who you are, what you know and what you need to know, why you need to know what you need to know. And so along the way, adaptation, learning and unlearning is a question of, why am I doing this? This space that I'm in right now, is it relevant for what I know, or a certain set of behavioral patterns that I come in with?
Right.
You know, I've had people saying, you know, Bayangaze Kai, I'm very stubborn. How does that work for you in a team?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you say, oh, I know myself, I have an only child syndrome. Me, right? How does that work for you in team cohesion, bringing teams together, working with people, getting people to understand that you're worthy of working with, right? And how do people feel when they're in your space? So there's certain things that we have to continuously, when you're on a journey of personal mastery, ask ourselves as we go along to say, is this working for me? In coaching, we ask this question, how is that working for you?
That's such an
How
important
is
question.
that working for you?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Well, you're leaving us with food for thought this Africa Day, and also blessing us with this book, The Professional Chameleon. There's so much that we could talk about, but trust me, you need to get yourself a copy of this book, because there's also gems for women, for transformation, the importance of joy and wellness, what you touch on, and also what you call the comorbidities of leadership, and how COVID-19 also exposed some of those challenges between people and organizations. I don't want to delve in too much because we need to get into the book and delve into the mystery of the book. But thank you so much, Kedibone Mooi, for joining us, the author of The Professional Chameleon. Make sure that you also get yourself a copy. But remember to also share with family and friends. It's a great book to also give to others so they can empower themselves and to maximize their potential in the workplace and also personally.